Okay, so hello, I'm Jacek, co-founder of Get.io, and today my guest, Ravi Sagar.
Hello.
Hello, hey. And Ravi is an Atlassian consultant. I would say that for me, Ravi is one of the most influential person in the whole Atlassian ecosystem. Ravi has a lot of experience in web development, business analysis. As I mentioned, he is an Atlassian consultant. He has done extensive work implementing, customizing big Jira instances, test management, support tickets, agile tracking. Ravi founded Sparksys Solutions, which you can see somewhere in the background. The company was founded in 2010. Yes, exactly. And Ravi is also a founder of a book, Mastering Jira. He has recorded Jira video tutorials and courses. As you can see, if you will be following up Ravi on the social media, Ravi is very active there as well. And my first experience with Ravi was when I was emailing Atlassian partners, and I saw the quote from Ravi in Adaptavist's footer. And I remember back then you were working for Valianty, so also Ravi has plenty of experience working with the biggest Atlassian partners there are. And back then I thought, whoa, that has to be someone important. So here we are. Thank you, Ravi, for being here.
Yeah, thank you very much for this wonderful introduction.
Yes. So today we'll be talking about Jira and the topics related to Jira integrations and migrations. I think that all of us would be very happy to hear about some cases and recommendations and stories from Ravi experience. So maybe the first opening questions would be, why do you think Jira is so special? And what makes people migrating to Jira, using Jira, integrating Jira? Why Jira?
Well, there are a lot of reasons why people like Jira, but if I have to tell you my personal experience, so initially, when I first encountered Jira, when I first got a chance to do something on Jira, it was back in 2007. So I was working for a company in India, a big telecom company, one of the biggest telecom company, and my responsibility was there to basically set up a Jira instance on-prem, of course, because there was no Jira cloud. And when I started looking at Jira, initially I didn't like it because I thought it must be just another tool. But I was coming from MS Project and MS Project Server and inbuilt tools. So when I first tried things in Jira, I realized that you can easily customize it. You can actually map your process to of course, your Jira projects. And that really excited me because all the tools that I used like in early or late 90s or early 2000s, they were, of course, huge. And you were not really able to customize them easily, but Jira was very easy to customize. There were a lot of things, fancy things that I was able to do on Jira. So that was, of course, the ability of Jira, where you can do customizations easily. It can also be a bad thing if you mess it up, but for me, it was definitely number one reason. And of course, now Jira has become really popular, especially the focus on cloud. I think these days, using a tool like Jira is as simple as going to the Atlassian website and you sign and you click a button, and within like a couple of minutes, you have a Jira instance. So, and by the way, they also have a free version, so which is like a wonderful thing.
Yes.
So for small teams, it's a great thing, I guess. And I think that is one of the, in my opinion, like the entry barrier is not really huge. You can easily get started with Jira. And of course, if we talk about various companies, I'm sure, people are using Jira for many years and it has become really popular. In fact, these days, everyone who is doing some kind of software development, most likely they are using an Atlassian tool like Jira.
Yeah. But also what makes like the whole suite special is the completeness that you can have Jira, you can have Confluence, right? So there's plenty of all the products, all the portfolio makes the whole stack special, right?
Right.
For all the people thinking about
exactly.
going there, right? So this is also very important. Plus, once I heard from an Atlassian partner that what makes Jira special is the possibility to customize it a lot, right? Also you mentioned this, that you can get a Jira, and on top of Jira, you can get plenty of different applications. Same thing with Confluence, and make it as unique as possible, right?
Yeah, exactly. So you don't need to buy like a huge package. You buy like a basic issue tracking tool or a basic wiki, and then based on your needs, based on your budget, based on your company's requirement, you can always evaluate. Okay, so you need to do time tracking. You need to do maybe these 10 things. Then maybe the following 3 apps can potentially be used to enhance the capabilities. So you're not really buying like a big bulky package. You're buying maybe a simple tool that you can always extend based on your requirements.
Yeah. And so why do you think people like integrate Jira with other tools like, let's say, Azure DevOps, ServiceNow, Asana? Why just don't everyone get Jira?
Yeah, but to be honest, Jira is essentially, I mean, if you talk about Jira as a tool, essentially it is nothing but an issue tracker. But of course, you can use it for project management. You can use it as a service desk. Of course, they have Jira Service Management. But talking about integration, now there are so many other tools that people use. I mean, if you talk about, let us say, even a simple software development process, Jira is, of course, one key tool in the picture. Like if we talk about all the different tools that people or organizations or teams they use, but there will be other tools that are used by other teams, or maybe they are used in some other process. But if we talk about day-to-day work, for example, if I'm a developer, or maybe if I'm a service desk agent, or maybe I'm just part of a team where I'm looking at my activities. Now, those activities, it could be story, it could be epic, it could be bug, it could be a ticket, or maybe an incident. That is somehow, in most cases, based on my experience, is connected, or it is supposed to be connected to something else, which might not be within Jira. So integration is always a need, because you won't just have Jira solving each and every problem. You will have different tools, and when you have different tools, it makes sense that somehow you can make them talk to each other.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So those scenarios, like let's say you can work with a contractor, and this contractor has another Jira or a different tool, right? You just don't want to invite them. Or sometimes like between different teams, let's say like the support team may just prefer to work at ServiceNow or at Zendesk or something else, right? And then like the DevOps engineer or like the operations manager, they have plenty of work to just find a way to connect those things, right? And usually it's not that easy.
Exactly. It is not just about liking or disliking. It is, I think, apart from that can also be a factor. But also those are the tools. Talking about ServiceNow, now ServiceNow is huge, and if you compare it with Jira Service Management, I think definitely there are overlaps. But ServiceNow works really well for big organizations, where it is really integrated with all the Microsoft suite of apps. So ServiceNow also has some, like a lot of those capabilities that are not really there, or probably not easy in Jira Service Management. But of course, you can't just remove a tool like without discussing it with everyone. You should let those teams use the tool that works for them, not just because they like it, but I'm sure they are using it for a reason, or maybe they're using it for a while, or maybe it is too difficult to make them move to a different tool. In that case, doing a simple integration solves a problem.
Yes, exactly. This is also what we observed, that sometimes those tools are in the organizations for many years. People are used to them. And just it's not a simple switch that can be done overnight, right? It's people habits and so on, and so it's not that easy. Yeah,
exactly.
So
exactly.
So in terms of the scenarios, like when you think about Jira, ServiceNow, or Jira Azure DevOps integrations on many others. So what do you think that people usually like in your experience, what people integrate? It's probably like the basic stuff like title and descriptions, but usually it's way more. And what makes it easy or complicated? Because the scenarios can be very different, right?
Scenarios can be very different. And I mean, talking about again, going back to your previous question, why integration? I think people, I mean, this is of course very important. Why? Because when we have different tools, if let us say, if you take one example of onboarding process, now I'll share a couple of very valid use cases, very common use cases. When we talk about onboarding, now onboarding is basically a process which is very common when people join a company. Of course, you can track things in Jira, like when the person is supposed to join, like due date or some kind of a start date. But when the person joins, you want to, of course, keep track of maybe 10 or 15 things that you have to do. Now, some of those things could be as simple as giving them access, right? For example, if I join a company, if I'm a new employee, I need access to your systems. And that access could be, of course, creating my account in AD, right? In Active Directory. This can also be done using Jira. So this is, of course, one really good scenario where you have a Jira ticket. So it could be a sub-ticket, or it could be, a subtask, or just a ticket for my onboarding. The moment you receive a request that Ravi is supposed to join this company, you can actually click a button and approve. And the moment you approve it, it will pick up the data from Jira. It could be not just a title or something. It could be my first name, last name, or my email address. And it will then create an account in AD. And the moment that happens, your account is created, right? It's very simple. And not only that, you can also feed in the feedback. So when my account is created in AD, you may want to let the reporter or the owner of the ticket that, yes, the account has been created. This is probably the login details. This is the link to login, and the password should be reset on first login. This is, of course, one example. Another example could be to just order a laptop or any device. And when you do that, you may also want to track it somewhere in the asset management system. It could be any system. But talking about scenarios, so these are, of course, very common scenarios. Of course, it is not just a simple integration where you want to just pass in the information from one tool to another tool, one directional, but it can also be bi-directional. It can also be not just one-time bi-directional. It can also be, let us say, if something happens in the other tool, so you always have the reference, so you can keep on transferring the information from one tool to another tool. For example, if we talk about HR systems, now whenever people join a company, because I worked with a client where they were using a tool, not really a popular tool, but it was a tool where all the contracts were stored, like your HR system kind of a tool, but only for contracts, like my initial documents, my private documents. But somehow you wanted to keep track of the employment status or employment start date or end date. Now, when the employee is going away, you want to probably raise a ticket in Jira. And then, let us say if the employment is supposed to be terminated, then you may want to transfer this information back to those other linked tools. Now, that can only happen when you have some kind of a reference. So this can, of course, be a bit more complicated. And that is where you have to be a bit more careful in the beginning to understand whether you should straight away do these integrations, or maybe, of course, you're trying to replace the manual effort here. Someone need to, without these integrations, you would probably do it manually. But when you have these integrations, of course, it can be a bit complex, but at the same time, you're saving time, you're saving manual effort.
Yeah, right. But when you think about the like, let's say a ticket that you actually integrate, you actually move, and it sounds so easy, like to just name it a ticket. But when we dig deeper, we will see that ticket can have like several fields, right? And those fields can be like very basic, but they can, Jira is quite complicated tool, right? So within this ticket, you can have several, let's say, custom fields and like things that make each of the tickets of different organizations very unique, right? And then when you try to integrate it with a different tool, then it's not that easy, right? Because this tool may have like different fields, and you need to find a way to connect one to the other, right? It's
exactly. Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, it's not that easy. So actually, this comes to my next questions, and to switch topic a little bit to migrations, because same goes with migrations. When you have plenty of things, let's say in ServiceNow, in Azure DevOps, so you have types, within types you have plenty of fields, and at some point the company decides to migrate, let's say, to Jira, right? And some people say, how about we use the native tool? Because like there's plenty of free and open possibilities to just do it. And why do you think it's a good or a bad idea? Why may it work for smaller or may not work for bigger, or the other way around?
Yeah, so definitely I think native tools, because each and every tool, if you talk about Jira or if you talk about ServiceNow, there is always some capability. Now, native tools are in most cases a bit limited. For example, if you talk about Jira, of course, you can talk to Jira using REST API, for example. And if you talk about importing data in Jira or maybe pulling data out of Jira, of course, you can do that with the help of, let us say, a CSV export or import. There are some other capabilities like project import, or you can do like a full restore of your Jira instance, wherever applicable, of course. But native tools will probably do just one thing. So talking about how many scenarios you can cover or what all you can do with these native tools, there's always going to be some kind of a limitation, especially if I talk about doing things with Jira. And that is where, of course, there is a need for, I guess, some kind of customization, or maybe a tool that will probably do a bit more than native tool, but cover a specific scenario in, of course, much more detail.
Yeah, we always see some customers like that coming to us when they tried to do the CSV import first. Then they found out that it's not just about the migration, but they also need to keep those tools in sync for some time. And then it's really not possible when you have like import export. Plus, you mentioned customizations. It comes down. It sometimes it works in a way that it's not that easy to just do import and export. You need someone to help you with this. You need to move the workflows in a way that actually works for you, and it just can't be done using CSV import, right? It's simply sometimes it's just not that easy. So some other people think that if the CSV is not working for them, we will just do the custom development, because like those integration tools are usually not cheap. So maybe we will do it ourselves. What do you think about this approach?
Well, this can only work, I believe, when you have time, resources, and of course, budget. And if, of course, you have a lot of if you have a lot of resources who can probably do, talking about competency, not just the availability of the resources, but also whether they can do it or not, then of course this can work. But if we talk about doing these migrations or integrations between two standard tools, and if these two standard tools are probably used by other organizations, and maybe there is already a tool in the market that has covered this scenario, then I think using a tool which is already probably being used by someone, or maybe it could be an app, then of course it will save not only time, but you will also learn from other people's mistake. For example, if we talk about Jira in general, of course we have Jira with native features, but we also have apps. And these apps were created because there were gaps in the functionality of Jira, because Jira can't really do each and everything. And that is where these apps will fill a gap. But at the same time, people didn't really make those apps because they were solving their own problems. I think people were able to create those apps because it was the need in the market, because everyone was probably looking for the same feature, and probably some of those vendors or partners thought that yes, we can probably start making these apps and maybe sell those apps to other people. So I think in a lot of cases, using a tool which is already there actually is not only quicker but also much cheaper, and you also learn from others, from their experiences.
Exactly, this is the thing that we see when talking to the customers. Usually, those discussions are with the smaller companies using Jira Cloud. When it comes to our tool, we like to say that we have the best price to value ratio, but there are some other tools that are like very, very expensive. But surprisingly, like big customers, the Jira DC customers, they usually understand the difference when they try to, let's say, translate the cost of the application and make it relative to the how much time they will spend on developing this. Usually they don't have the time. They need to acquire the competencies that usually it's not that easy. Plus the maintenance of the tool is also something that they would like to just pass on and just focus on the core business, right? So I guess those are the things that worth taking into consideration when just talking to vendors and choosing the tool. So actually this is the question about you were working with plenty of vendors, with plenty of customers. You have the experience as a consultant, so all the three possible scenarios. And what do you think make the So let's say we're the customer, how the customer should choose the right vendor, the right solution. What would be the things that they should take into consideration?
Well, yeah, so there is no simple like answer to that, but talking about how to choose the solution or how to choose maybe the vendor who has developed some kind of a solution, I think they have to evaluate, of course, their, I mean, talking about what kind of tools they are talking about. For example, if let us say if a bank is interested in integrating Jira with maybe their own customized PPM solution or maybe their own internal tool. In that case, of course, I think it is unlikely that they will probably find a vendor who has done some work already. But if, let us say, there is a tool, I think you mentioned Azure or maybe ServiceNow. So these are the tools that are already being used by the other companies. So if, let us say, they have their requirements written down, usually when people want to, when organizations want to integrate Jira with other tools, or maybe if they have to perform migrations, they are looking for the end goal. They're not really always clear on the specifications. And that is where, if you talk to the vendors who has, or maybe if they have any solution or maybe an app that has probably done something similar in the beginning, so that is where they can also help, because usually the vendors, they have maybe some scenarios, some demos, or they can also help with the initial pre-sale, because their app may not cover each and everything, but they can always talk to the client in the beginning. But for choosing, I think definitely based on their previous, I mean, if I'm talking to, let us say, a vendor, if I know that they are able to demonstrate something very quickly, for example, if I'm a bank and I am, let us say, the head of IT, and my aim is to basically see Jira talk to another tool. So if I can quickly see it in action, then it will make my life to take a decision very easy. And that is where I think I can immediately see the value. So definitely, based on the experience of these vendors who have, or maybe these vendors, if they have any pre-built solution or some kind of a working prototype or a POC that they can do very quickly, then that really helps, in my opinion.
But when you come even to the Atlassian marketplace, which is already, I would say, 10 years old, or maybe even older, right?
Yep.
So when you browse the topic, you can, in many times you can see more than one company able to provide you with the solution, and you can see both of them have plenty of installations, both of them have plenty of stars, reviews, and so on. And this, like, IT director or the Jira administrator, that they have to make a recommendation, right? And it's not that easy. So what do you think should be the points that they should like check, evaluate, discuss, and see, like to make the recommendation and be certain that they are making the right choice?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, to be honest, based on my experience, yes, there are a lot of overlaps, and and talking about like, if I have to make a decision, in most cases, not always, but in most cases, I think you're quickly able to figure out these things very easily if you do maybe a little search online, because if you know about the company, for example, let us say if I'm choosing an app for maybe adding a functionality for, let us say, time tracking. Now, there are more than one. I mean, in fact, there are several apps that can do it, like enhance the time tracking capabilities. But if you do a quick search online, you will probably visit their website. You will probably visit their activity on the community, and maybe if they are able to demonstrate, maybe if they have use cases, published white papers, then I think that really makes things easy. But at the same time, that is where because this is what I do on a day-to-day basis, and that is where we add value, because I am a consultant. So if you ask me, for example, if I'm working with a client and they share their requirements with me, so it is my responsibility, based on my experience, to match their requirements and recommend them an app. Now, just to share a very simple thing, for example, if you have to do a visual road mapping in Jira, now, of course, you can do it with the native roadmap feature in Jira software. even in Jira Work Management. You can also do it with the advanced roadmap, but it comes with premium. You can also do it with structure app. You can also do it with big picture. You can also do it with Easy BI. And there are, I think, 5 other popular apps. And that
plus
is
probably 10 more outside of the marketplace.
Exactly. And that is where, based on clients' requirements and based on what we think is suitable for them, we have to make a decision. Because usually if I talk about vendors, they all say that their app is great, but we have to be neutral as a consultant, because we are the one who is going to help them make decision. So I think that is where we as a consultant also add value, helping our clients.
Absolutely. So this is sometimes what help us work with a bigger customers is to actually have someone like you to be like the middleman, because people in the companies, they are not doing migrations and integrations on a daily basis. They usually do something else. And when there is a need for integration, sometimes they just think that this is like very easy. I have those fields, those types, it should just work. But when you dig deeper, when you try to make the list of requirements, like talk to the business, you see that it's becoming challenging even more. So having someone who understands the solution and the needs of the customers and can actually be the one that helps, even for me as a vendor, it really helps to talk to the customers and solve the real problems. Plus, what makes us sometimes winning bigger customers is the flexibility. So it's not that easy that you can just get a tool and it will just work out of the box.
Exactly.
Each of the tool there is on the marketplace and even outside of the marketplace, they are driven by customers, right? So when a customer has a custom case, I think that what matters is the way that vendor responds. It can just tell you that this is how it works. You have to adjust, or the vendor can tell you, okay, this is how you want it to be. We will adjust the tool and make it work for you, right? So I would say that the smaller companies have this agility, this possibility to be more flexible and help the customers make the right decision. And this is something worth checking, like when talking, because even the basic case can usually mutate to the more complicated one, and you need to know that someone has your back, right? Especially when someone in the bigger, like in the business positions, they have expectations, and you're in the position that you have to meet them, and your tool doesn't support this. And so this is challenging. Also, what we think that customers have, the security is also the big case, right? Especially for the bigger companies. For example, like the possibility to host the tool as on-premise, so it doesn't have another SaaS solution stored somewhere with the sensitive data and so on. So so this is also some things probably worth considering, right?
Yep, definitely.
So how do you think, how much time it should take to prepare a migration or to migrate from one tool to the other? It doesn't happen overnight, right? So what do you think? How it should work?
I think again it depends on the scenario. Sometimes it could be a simple migration. It could be as simple as using an app or a tool and just connect them together. It can happen very quickly. Or if you're talking about a bit more customized migration, then of course you have to spend time. It can of course take months. I did one integration of Jira with another tool, and it took me 3 months or maybe 4 months just to set up a POC, because I tried a couple of solutions. It was not really about the technical feasibility. It was more about the company, because they kept changing their requirements. So I had to basically come up with different type of solutions, or also using technology a bit more differently. So there is no clear answer. It depends, depending upon what tool you're talking about and what kind of integration are you doing. If you're doing a simple integration, yes, it can happen very quickly, and there might already be a tool, but it can also take a long time.
So exactly. So even so the simple integration can be usually set up within minutes, right? But then when you try to play with it and you see the results, then you got the errors and you see that it's not that easy. In our experience, we say that the migration usually takes about 3 months, exactly like you mentioned, 3-4 months. So this is the sweet spot, because you have to do the requirements listing, then you have to do the tests before going live, then you go live, then something goes wrong. So 3 months is usually the sweet spot for more complicated solutions. So our experience is exactly the same like yours in this case. So how do you prepare yourself for the migration or the integration? You mentioned requirements. So how do you work on preparing the requirements to making sure that you have everything in place?
Yeah, I think again, so talking about requirements, the requirements is usually nothing but a simple document where you try to list down the end goal. But of course, we have to talk to the stakeholders. We also have to prepare the technical specifications. So technical specifications is definitely the most important thing, because that is where you will document. If we talk about getting into the details, and if you're talking about two different tools, so it could be things like, if we talk about Jira language, what issue types you want to integrate, what fields you want to integrate, what events will be there, and what will happen if these two tools are not talking to each other. Will it be some kind of a maybe will you try to do it again after like few minutes, or maybe you will keep a log somewhere. So of course, this is just based on whether you want to integrate, whether you want to keep this integration up and running. For example, I once did one integration where there was definitely a need to integrate, but we decided intentionally not to have like a live sync happening. We decided to do it maybe 3 or 4 times by simply running a cron job, so that you can schedule it. So the integration will happen, or the import will happen, or the sync will happen 4 times during a day. So basically, if you talk about the requirements, so once you have like your initial document where you capture the goal, you then start talking to people. You then start talking to people who are actually maintaining the tool, and then you make sure that these two tools, first of all, whatever you're trying to solve, whether it is possible or not. Sometimes it is not possible. Sometimes there are some constraints. Then you don't really want to spend like 3 months, and then when you go live, you're actually not able to do anything because there is a blockage. So basically, you have to spend some time in the beginning making sure that yes, it will work for sure. And that is where I personally believe in doing like a very quick POC, or I'm not really saying that it should be like a MVP. I think I believe in doing something very small, which is working, and then use it as like, because it's a POC, it's a proof of concept, then of course scale it up.
Yes, we do exactly the same approach with the customers, even to those that think that this is so basic. Why should we do the POC? We always say that there's plenty of sensitive information and plenty of people working with the tool, and if you set the integration or the migration in a wrong way, you can mess up plenty of fix within Jira or Azure DevOps, of plenty of other tools. So the POCs, even with the simplest thing, you should always do it, right? To make sure that that it works. And this simple document with the requirements also for us is very crucial, because then you think that even when you have the list of all the fields and all the types that you want to integrate, that you need to make sure that the another tool that you want to migrate to or integrate with, all those fields, like there is a place to store this information from one place to the other. And then it may turn out that, let's say you want to integrate Azure DevOps area path, but Jira doesn't have this field. So you need to create the custom field to store this information. And only with playing with even the simple like Excel file or like Google Docs file, you can see these small things that will matter when you will be trying to set up the whole integration, right? Also, the challenge is that we see is that some people try to migrate, let's say, from Azure DevOps to Jira, and they want to make Jira look like Azure DevOps, right? And migrate it all, right? So do you think that people should migrate everything, or maybe this is like a good moment to think about how the organization should work, right? Because the tool is just a tool. It should be work in a way that it was meant to be, right? And Jira is so powerful, you can overcomplicate it, right? But I guess it's not the best approach, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, tools are just tools because people, I mean, as you mentioned, people have this, I mean, not always, but if I'm working with a team and people are complaining about the tools all the time, then in most cases, it is not really the tool problem. It is more about the leadership, because someone has to be in control. Someone has to basically give directions. For example, I work with a lot of clients where everything is working fine. I mean, tool is great, but they don't really use the tool. There is no, I mean, you can obviously enforce things in a tool like Jira by customizing it, by enforcing some policies, but end of the day, tool is not really going to replace people. I mean, people are using these tools to work, but you have to make sure that you are using those tools in first place. But yes, we should also try to set the expectations from the very beginning. If people are asking too much about, for example, if you mentioned that customizing the look and feel of the tool, of course, it can be done, and I've done that in the past by doing a lot of bad things. But I always try to stay away and recommend my clients that yes, if you want to insert, let us say, a custom CSS, or if you want to modify a velocity file, yes, you will probably solve one problem today, but it will create maybe 10 problems after 6 months when you try to upgrade your Jira instance. And so that is, of course, where we add value by saying no.
Yes, or just keeping it simple. So I remember some of our customers were surprised that we wanted to keep the integration of the migration as simple as possible. And usually you may say that it's in our business to make it complicated, because the more complicated it gets, the more money you can get, the more hours you will spend on it. So the bigger the bill. But we operate in a way that we like to treat our customers as friends, and we like to make it as simple as possible, because the more types and the more fields you will integrate or migrate, it's harder to maintain this. It takes much time for people to read all the informations, and sometimes the smaller the better, right? So also this is our approach to try to keep it as small as possible. So to choose the tool that is able to handle very complicated cases, but use it as a translator in the simplest possible way, right?
Exactly.
So this is how we try to approach.
Yeah. That is totally true.
So I would like to hear some story from you about like the most complicated case that you had in your career, or maybe you had some story that's about the integration that people listening to this could think about as a best practice or not to do practice.
I mean, I do have like a lot of examples, a lot of stories that I would share, but I mean, because when you mentioned the most complicated one, I do have one.
Okay. Yeah, I thought about complicated because I thought that this is gonna be the most interesting and challenging. But maybe
so let me share one. It was not really. It was not really. I don't really want to say complicated, but it was certainly the first time I encountered something like that, and I managed to do it. And I also made a video on my channel sharing a part of it. So remember I mentioned the onboarding process in the beginning. Now, of course, when someone onboards, you want to do some things like you want to maybe create their account in Azure AD, which is another tool, or maybe you want to set up their account in HR system. But once what happened was that I was working with a client, and they wanted to order a laptop. Now, for ordering a laptop, they do it in another tool, but they wanted to basically get the order ID, because when you order a laptop, you will not just get the order ID of the order, but you will also get the courier number, the consignment number. So my client wanted to share that consignment number with a map, because I believe when you order something from, let us say, these famous courier companies, they will give you this order number or some kind of a tracking number that you can track. And and in some of those cases, you can also display it on a map or some kind of a view where it will tell you where exactly your box is.
Oh yes.
So basically, what I did, I told them that map is a bit too much. But what we can do is we can somehow, if you have APIs, we can somehow, of course, send the request to order, but we can also send back the tracking ID back in Jira. So not only just the tracking ID, but because, for example, if I'm tracking my laptop, the ID will probably help because I can see this ID and I can probably go to, let us say, DHL website and track it. But if I can also generate the URL, so it will actually make things much more easier because I can click on the link and it will take me to the site. But to generate the URL, it was probably a bit complicated for me because it was not like really like a simple appending the number somewhere. It was more about encoding some characters, and I had to basically write a shell script and do some not so nice things. It was working, but it was a bit fragile, and that is where I totally agree with you. Even though it can be done, you should try to say no, because if it is working today or if it is working for the next 2 months, it might not work after 3 months, or it is a bit, if it is a bit fragile solution, then you should try to keep it simple or just pass the ID. So you can manually copy and paste, because it was, and the main thing is that it was not really needed. It was more of a fancy thing to do.
Yes, something because we can, and it will look nice. So how about we have it? And then you say, oh, how about no? It will be easier and better for you not to have it, right? So yes. I remember in our case, it was we had a big car manufacturing company, and they wanted to migrate from Azure DevOps to Jira. And in that case, they wanted to combine complicated with simplicity. So they had plenty of fields in Azure DevOps, but they didn't wanted to migrate them like one-to-one, like field to field. They wanted to like take the values from the fields from Azure DevOps and inject them directly to the description field in Jira.
Okay.
And for us, it was a little bit challenging because we didn't have the feature that will be able to do it. But what we did, we did a custom development for them, and we added the custom scripting options. And thanks to those scripts, we were able to inject those values there. So sometimes you try to like connect one world with the other, and if there's a solution, it makes like sense to do it, right? But again, this is the whole conversations with a client. You have your advices, they have their opinions, and then need to find a way in the conversation, right?
Exactly.
To make it work. So let's say that another thing would be like that. Usually, the integrations are the fields that the things that are taking some time, right? So let's say you start an integration, and this integration works in your company for several years. So let's say you can start with a small MVP, a small thing, and then it can scale up, right?
Right.
How do you perceive the people using like this, the integration tools for today and for the future? How different it is for them? How should they choose the tool?
Yeah, I think in most cases, I think if, let us say, someone, because I do encounter sometimes these old integrations still working fine.
Yes.
I remember one of my client was basically using a Python script to connect Jira with another tool. So basically, it was receiving a file, some text file, and it was the job of this Python script was to parse the text file and pick up some characters, because the text file had some special format. So the Python script was able to pick up things, and it was then able to feed it to Jira. Now, my client asked me to basically evaluate whether this very old integration should be replaced by something else. I looked at it and I told them, yes, it can definitely be replaced because we can do the same thing using a script for Jira. But when I looked at this integration, I asked them a lot of questions. I asked them why exactly you are looking to replace it. Just because we can replace it, I don't really think we should be replacing it unless you are maybe going to, unless there is a problem with the technology. Sometimes when you're working with, let us say, MySQL databases, and if you are basically using a very old version, then you have to eventually upgrade. But I think, in my opinion, if something is working fine, and if something is working totally fine, then maybe keep it running. Maybe don't really do integration just for the sake of it, just because you have, unless you have a better option, unless there is an app where you can log in and where you can do these things from the user interface, so that you don't have to go to the code and maintain it yourself. Because if you're talking about a Python script, it is not massively complicated, but you still need someone who can read it, right? As long as you're able to maintain it, it is fine. But if you have a better option, then I think evaluate your options.
Yeah, so this is one case that if it works, like it can still work, right? So what's the point of changing it because there's something fancy and some people are just talking about some other good tool. If it works for you, it can still be working. I remember for us it was the case with a customer that bought the on-premise version of the tool, and they it worked for them when they got it, and it worked for them like a year after when we got a totally new version with plenty of new features, fancy stuff, and they simply didn't need it. It just worked for them in a very basic way that it was at the beginning. So there was no point for them to getting the newer version, just extending the license. But for the other cases, there are some customers that start small, let's say using Zapier or like using Unito, like simpler tools, and then the integration is getting more complex, right? And then sometimes it's getting challenging because you need to migrate to another tool or request some custom development on top of the solution that you have. So I would say that in terms of integration, it can always be more complicated than it is, right? So it's good to be prepared that some things may happen and change in the future, right?
Exactly.
So what do you think can go wrong when it comes to integration or migration?
Well, whenever it comes to two tools talking to each other, I'm always a bit nervous because a lot of things can go wrong, especially, I mean, my main, so whenever I talk about integrations, if, let us say, because it is usually easy to, let us say, send a request from one tool to another tool, or vice versa. But there are cases where if there's an issue with the connectivity, then that is of course one thing that can go wrong. The other thing that can go wrong is when you change, let us say, your specifications. It could be just a requirement change, like maybe that particular integration or whatever is not needed anymore, or maybe there's a slight change in the process, or it could be someone simply, let us say, adding a new field or removing a field. So things can definitely go wrong, and that is where I think whatever integration that we are doing, we have to ensure that we have enough checks to basically compensate or basically cover these things that can go wrong. For example, if let us say I have a script that is picking up a field value from ServiceNow and feeding it to Jira. If that particular field is not there at all, or it might be there right now because when you are building this solution in the beginning, it will work. But if the field is removed, then your solution should be able to identify it. Easily.
Yes, or to show you the error and like tell you what's wrong, right? So
exactly.
Exactly. This is the things that we see as well. That when the scope changes, the things gets more complicated. Or when the fields that were previously marked as required, someone removed them and the integration couldn't work because it couldn't create an issue out of the scenario where the field is required but it's not there, right? So plenty of things can go wrong. So I would say the reporting, the logs part are very important. So I guess what we could do now, if it's okay for you, I will show you how we approach the way we do integrations and migrations. And I would love to hear your feedback. So can you allow me to share the screen?
Yeah. Let me just give you the...
So meanwhile, I will tell this that we developed this tool for mostly technical people, like consultants like yourself, like DevOps engineers, Jira admins. So it may be a little rough, but we wanted it to be a little rough. It doesn't have to be like fancy, right? So it was based on a lot of experience while talking to people at Atlassian user groups, Atlassian partners, and I think you can see my screen now, right? And this is the first screen that people see when they entering the Get.io. We say that this is not email, this is not LinkedIn. The good integration tool is not something that you check on daily, right? What's the point? You should set it up once and it should work. But from time to time, the things may change. The people can erase the fields. So it's good to be able to just spot the mistakes or what is happening. And this is the place where everything will be being integrated or migrated. You will be able to see all those data here. You will be able to go and check all the errors. If anything ever happens, you will have all the details about what happened. You will be able to, let me check the thread. You will be able to check the logs. And so you have plenty of information for like more technical person to be able to investigate what exactly was happening with your integration or migration. Plus, for us, it is the power to quickly jump in and help as a support engineers, because almost at one glance we are able to see what is wrong, right? So the speed of response is very important, very fast and very important in this case. The heart of the tool is this place. This is the integration screen. We say that you can install the application via some marketplace, let's say Jira Marketplace, Azure DevOps Marketplace, Zendesk Marketplace, Asana Marketplace, and so on. But we learned that for some companies, this is not the best option, because let's say Jira admin doesn't like to install too much in the applications on Jira. It may affect the performance of Jira and stuff. So we offer various options. You can go and get the app via the marketplace, but also you can go outside of the marketplace. So the flexibility here is very huge for people with different scenarios. All you have to do is to select the first application, and we say that this is not really an app. This is more like a platform, because you can scale from one integration to another. You can select Jira to Jira, then Asana to Asana, Asana to Jira, ServiceNow to Jira. You have plenty of different options. But let's say you want to go with the Jira. The only thing that you need to do to use this tool and establish the integration with Jira is to provide the URL, the username, email address, personal token for Jira Cloud, or password for Jira on-premise. So again, you don't need to install anything anywhere. You just provide this, and this is it, right? In terms of the possibility of deployment, you can get our tool as SaaS, which is good for like smaller Jira Cloud companies. But for the bigger corporations, let's say, like you mentioned, banks, or like other companies that care a lot about security, privacy, and stuff, we offer the on-premise version. So yeah, some people like just want to go with the tool that they can like have behind the firewall, and even us have totally no access to it. So when the connection is established, just select the connection, and the integration is project based. So you select the project. Let's say it's gonna be whatever JDemo for this case. And also what is nice is that you can provide the custom JQL to, let's say, filter out only the issues with a given label, right? So we provide the custom JQL label sync, and this is often used for the people that don't want to create a dedicated projects for integrations, let's say with the contractor. They just work as they usually do, and when they want to push some tickets to the contractor, they just add a label, contractor sync or whatever, right? So it's good to know that the tool can help you when this scenario is actually yours. So you have one, and then you go to the other, let's say the Azure DevOps. This is a very similar approach to creating the connection. Again, you don't need to install the tool in Azure DevOps. You can, but you don't have to. You select the method, you provide the name for the getting TIO, you provide the URL, the email address, personal access token, or a password. And same thing as with Jira, you provide, you select the connection, you select the project, and then you can provide the additional query if needed. So let's say you want to sync to the project with a specific query, you can just provide it here, and the tool will just do the job for you, right? So this is quite nice. Then what's happening is that you proceed with the things that you should have prepared before. So let's say this Excel file with all the types and fields. So I say that the tool is just a translator, right? It will just translate the schema, the scenario that you planned before. So in this case, just to show you the logic how the tool works, let's say you want to translate tasks from Jira to issues in Azure DevOps, right? So you just select them. It's that easy. And then within this type, you have plenty of fields. So in our 3-minute setup, like we say, you have some things set up by default, so titles, descriptions. But if you want to add something more, you just have to select it. So yeah, you say assignees, right? So you provide the mapping for the assignees. If you want to assign, let's say, ID from the Azure DevOps, it's good to have created the custom field in Jira Azure item ID and then do the mapping. Yeah, so this is the place where you have to do all these mappings. On this screen, you can also decide about the update scenario. Should it be updated only when the issue is created? Mm-hmm. Should it be updated when the issue is should it be integrated as well when the issue is being updated, or not? Should it be only created once and then not updated at all, right? So again, you have plenty of settings here to set things up. Then you go to the statuses, you do the mapping for the statuses. Important thing is that the good practice is to have the workflows as similar as possible. But exactly. If you can't do it, the tool is here to support you. So you can map several statuses on one side to one status on the other. So let's say in this case, it will be in progress, will be doing. And since we have 4 options here and 3 in total here, you just say that selected for development will also be translated into doing in Azure DevOps, right? You can provide the default mapping, the scenario for empty value handling. So again, some advanced cases are available here. Most people like to sync comments and attachments. So this is as easy as you see to just mark it. You can specify the direction. The default one is the both ways, but you can set that in some cases you just want to sync attachments only in one direction, not both ways. You can set it up here. You can specify the post-create updates if needed. You can add hierarchy and subtask relationship if needed. So like plenty of things that people use. And when this is done, you can also decide on the integrating scenario. So should it work real time? Should it run every 60 seconds? You mentioned that in one case you decide to do it like 4 times a day, right? Yeah. So yeah, again, you are able to set it up here. If needed, you can use the migration feature. So you want to migrate issues from the past, let's say for the past month, for the past year, or any other point in time. So this is fairly easy because based on the integration scenario that you have, you specify the direction. So let's say you want to migrate from Azure DevOps to Jira. So you just select it, you provide the time zone, this scenario, what should happen with the items that are already migrated. So let's say you want to skip them, you just apply it and it works. And this is the last feature is the one that we just added for the customer some time ago is adding the scripts. So there are different tools on the market. Some of them requires you to select, should you build the whole integration only using scripts or only using UI? Okay. We say it doesn't really make sense because if you can do the simple version and using the UI, at some point you just figure out that maybe you should add something with the scripts, you should have this option, right? So you should keep it simple when it's possible and add scripts when it's needed. So yeah, this is the approach that we have.
Makes sense.
So you provide a custom Java script code, you just apply it, and this is it. So then you just provide a name, Ravi Talk, let's say, you hit create, and then you are able to go to the live preview and the tool will run as you specified every 60 seconds. In this case, you will have like here, right? It's running. If I will be creating issues, it will be already moving those issues here. You're able to preview the runs, the errors, and like, yeah, plenty of things in here. So I would say it's pretty straightforward. What do you think?
Yep, definitely. Because I think all the things that we talked about, and especially someone who is supposed to do these things, like someone who is going to get their hands dirty, I think if they have access to a tool like yours, so far I think it is just a matter of me, because you showed me how it works, and I think you have already shown me how to get started with a simple integration that can be up and running in maybe 2, if not 2, maybe 5 minutes, because it is. I just
we call it 3-minute setup. Yes.
Yeah. So 3 minutes, or if not 3, maybe 5 minutes. But
maybe 5. Yes.
Yeah. But basically, the thing is that you are able to set up something very quickly, and then of course, as you mentioned, you can run it And when you run it, you can actually straight away see the results, and it will give you an idea about, yes, it works, and okay, what all I can do now, what all use cases, how can I enhance it further. So definitely, I mean, having a tool like this will definitely add value.
Yeah, so usually you should start small with the basic setup, and then you see it works, so you add another field. It works. Yep. Okay, so I'm adding another field or another type, and so on and so on. So this is like trial and error, right? You should test it out to make sure that that you can just get it up and running.
Yep.
Okay, so thank you, Ravi. Thank you for the conversations. I learned a lot. So yeah, happy to have you here.
Yeah, thank you very much for inviting me, and at the same time, I think your tool is wonderful. I think it will definitely add value, and I will definitely try and take a look at it as well. So thank you very much once again.
Thank you, Ravi. Thank you again. And so on. So I think that you will be able to see my screen now.
Yes, I can see your screen.
Yes, so yes, this is it. That's the so